I'm gonna start this video off unconventionally because I'm actually gonna begin with the ending of this John Carpenter classic. The close of Halloween sees Michael Myers disappear after having been shot multiple times, and we then get a number of quick shots showing random spaces accompanied by the heavy breathing of Myers. And I have always viewed this as a perfect, unsettling finale for this horror masterpiece. The entire film aimed to build suspense around who exactly Michael Myers was and where he was lurking. And throughout the runtime, we see multiple occasions of Myers appearing and then disappearing at seemingly the drop of a hat, which naturally lends us to question whether or not he was actually in these places and just has some supernatural abilities, or if these characters are letting paranoia get to them and are just seeing him in places where he's not actually present. And this ending plays on both of these possibilities incredibly. By showing us all of these random places where Michael could happen to be lurking, it makes us as an audience start to question where he went, and by dubbing in his heavy breathing, it gives us the feeling that he could pop up at any moment in one of these POV shots. So in essence, the last short sequence of this film briefly puts us as viewers into the position that these characters were in for the entire film. And it does it in such a subtle yet creepy way, which leaves us as an audience with a sense of paranoia as we fade to the credits. And the idea that Michael Myers is pure evil, or perhaps the boogeyman, as Dr. Loomis seems to believe, only increases the level of uneasiness that this ending gives off, because it hints at the fact that Michael Myers might be an unstoppable force. He took numerous gunshots, yet still survived. I mean, if he is lurking on us in the shadows somewhere, how are we supposed to stop him? Well, this film makes it pretty clear that you very likely can't. And I personally feel like people don't talk enough about this ending. It is the perfect crescendo for a slasher masterclass. But I think this ending only becomes more impressive when we go back and take a look at how the film began. The opening sequence gave us a POV of a young Michael Myers as he put a Halloween mask on and killed his sister with a knife. So this movie started by putting us in the disturbing POV perspective of the killer of the film, forcing us to watch his first kill from his eyes, and then ends by shifting us to the perspective of one of his next potential victims, as we get POV shots of random locations that any of us viewers could find ourselves in, with Myers potentially lurking behind us. And while the opening of this film does receive its fair share of praise for being such a dark and great intro scene, I think it becomes even more interesting and brilliant when you contextualize it with the ending as well. Having discussed the ending and beginning of Halloween, I suppose it also makes sense to analyze the bulk of the film in between, and well, I think this movie really laid the groundwork for how to produce a properly good slasher film. I know it was technically not the first slasher, but Halloween undoubtedly popularized the genre, and in a lot of ways legitimized it. Because while yes, this film is technically just about teenagers getting tormented and killed by a creepy figure, the execution of this film is beautiful. John Carpenter is giving a classic John Carpenter performance behind the camera here, and the way he captured Michael Myers has never really been fully duplicated in any of the Halloween sequels. I mean, there's been 11 Michael Myers-led subsequent films, and none of them are as creepy or suspenseful as the original. And I think this is largely due to the pacing of the film, the way in which Carpenter frames Myers, and the tension he is able to slowly build from scene to scene. This is a film that is nearly perfectly directed, and given how low the budget Carpenter had to work with was, right around $300,000, I think Halloween is a shining example of the fact that a budget is not always everything when it comes to making great content. In the right hands, creativity and talent will always shine through and are far more important than money when producing a film. Building off of the execution of this movie, the score is also absolutely iconic. The main theme is rather simple, primarily just using a piano and a synthesizer, but you want to talk about creepy aura? This score embodies that to a T. It is unsettling with dark and ominous piano keys, yet has a strange rhythm to it that almost lulls you into nodding your head to the beat. It's an incredible piece of music that the film utilizes perfectly to build suspense, and I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention it. Now to address the big thing I haven't yet, Jamie Lee Curtis is phenomenal as Laurie Strode. Now, I don't think she is the greatest final girl of all time, like many others do. I'd personally go with Ellen Ripley or maybe Sidney Prescott, but Laurie is certainly an iconic character, and I enjoy her function within this film. Laurie essentially represents the polar opposite of our main antagonist here. While this boogeyman seeks to kill and cause destruction, Laurie is fighting not only to survive, but to protect the lives of 2 children she is babysitting. But at the same time, Laurie is forced to tap into her inner warrior, if you will, and adapt some of Michael Myers' abilities, as she shows some impressive durability and ingenuity when fighting off this killer. And I love when horror films show our main character adapt and evolve in order to overcome the evil force they are up against. This kind of character progression and evolution makes you really want to root for the character, and especially when it comes to slashers, if our leads aren't likable or developed properly, it becomes very easy to just root for the killer to win. Because gory death scenes suddenly become kind of enjoyable when you're not rooting for the protagonist. But I think it's clear that Laurie Strode found her inner strength and fortitude that she probably didn't even know she had in order to survive this boogeyman, and certainly steers clear of this general slasher issue. But let's be honest, as great as Laurie is, and as amazing of a force as Michael Myers is, the best character here is Dr. Loomis. His speeches throughout the film add such weight and interesting lore into the fold, and hearing Loomis say, "What was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil," gives me chills every time I hear it, so shout out to Donald Pleasence for an iconic performance. All in all, Halloween is one of the greatest horror films ever made, and as is the case with other John Carpenter classics, it has a simple yet perfectly executed central concept that created a groundbreaking slasher icon. And I do firmly believe that Michael Myers would never have become the iconic horror figure that he is, if not for the incredible foundation that Carpenter gave him in this initial Halloween film. If you made it this far, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this analysis of Halloween, please feel free to drop a like or subscribe, and remember, this is just my opinion, so if you agree, disagree, or just have strong Halloween thoughts, as always, I'd love to hear you in the comments. Until next time, peace.